We begin tonight with what they said could never be done. They said that wedge issues only wedge one way. If you are a Democratic politician, if you've got a culture warrior opponent, you essentially just have to take it. They can win points with their base for being super anti-abortion, super anti-gay, and all the rest. But there's no way that you as a liberal, you as a Democrat, can raise those issues from the other side. Sorry, you just can't do it. Don't bother. You can campaign against reproductive rights. Republicans have made an art form out of that in recent years. But you can't campaign for reproductive rights. That just can't be done. This is how the culture war has settled out over the past decade or so. You can campaign all you want against all sorts of civil libertarian issues. You can campaign against gay people. You can campaign against religious freedom for anyone who's not your particular brand of Christian. You can campaign against reproductive rights. But you can't campaign for these things. That's the common wisdom. They say it couldn't be done. They are wrong. If you are a Democrat, you can, in fact, hit your opponent for being an extremist on those issues. In fact, you can nail them to the wall for that.
As a doctor, I try to protect the health of women. That's what I do. That's why I'm very disturbed by Ken Buck. Ken Buck would ban common forms of birth control. And Ken Buck wants to make abortion illegal, even in cases of rape and incest. But that should be a woman's decision, not a politician's. As far as I'm concerned, Ken Buck is just too extreme for Colorado.
Too extreme for Colorado. That is an ad being run right now by Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. His opponent, Ken Buck, is one of at least 5 Republican Senate candidates that we know of who want the government to make abortion illegal, even in cases where a woman is pregnant as the result of rape or incest. The federal government should monitor every pregnancy of every American woman everywhere in the country to ensure that it ends the way the federal government prefers, no matter what the woman herself or her doctor thinks is best. Even if she is raped, Ken Buck wants the federal government to force the rape victim to bear the child of the rapist. Memo to Democrats: if your opponent has views that extreme, throw out the conventional wisdom. You can run against someone on that basis. They say it couldn't be done. It can be done.
Ken Buck wants to make common forms of birth control illegal.
It's just ridiculous. I can't believe in 2010 Ken Buck wants to limit women's access to birth control.
Ken Buck also wants to make a common fertility treatment illegal.
This is reaching so far into people's private lives.
Who is he to make that choice?
Ken Buck does not belong in my family planning. Women's rights should not be taken backwards.
The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
They said it couldn't be done. It can be done. Democrats, take note. Republican Senate candidate Sharon Angle of Nevada, also a member of the Government Should Force Women to Bear Their Rapists' Babies caucus. Here's her opponent, Democrat Harry Reid, running against Sharon Angle on that exact issue.
What do you call a candidate who says the way things are going, the time may be coming for Second Amendment remedies, an armed response to our government? Who says a teenage rape victim should be forced to have the baby? What do you call that candidate? Extreme. Sharon Angle. Just too extreme.
There's one other that I want you to see here. One other of these ads. It is from the great state of Illinois. This is Democrat Dan Seals going after his Republican opponent, Robert Dold, on essentially the same issue. Check this one out.
So who's for Dan Seals? The Sun-Times says Seals has a strong business and policy background. Newspapers call him independent, impressive. Seals understands what small businesses need to grow and create jobs. And who's behind Robert Dold? Dold was recommended by Illinois Federation for Right to Life, a group that opposes abortion even in cases of rape and incest. And the Tea Party. Dold called them great. So that's who's behind Robert Dold. Who are you behind? The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Here's the most politically salient thing about that specific ad and what that example means for Democrats running in this year's elections. The Republican candidate who gets hit in that ad, Robert Dold, does not actually have a virulently anti-choice record that Dan Seals is hitting him on. They're hitting him on the fact that he's been endorsed by a very anti-abortion organization. He's not even an anti-abortion candidate, but this Democrat in this race is trying to make him pay a price for being associated with a super anti-abortion group. Now, that's the sort of thing that Republicans do to Democrats all the time, and which Democrats could have been doing to Republicans all this time, but in most cases they wouldn't, because they were too skittish about abortion being the basis for doing that on this sort of an issue. But here's Dan Seals showing how it's done, making his Republican opponent pay a price for the right's extremism this year, bringing the national dynamic of the Republican Party and the right going very far right this year, bringing that national dynamic home to an individual race and making a Republican answer for it who really doesn't want to have to answer for it. They say that wedge issues can only go in one direction, that they only work for conservatives. They are wrong. They can go in both directions if Democrats are willing to do it. The current crop of Republican congressional candidates are so extreme on even just this one issue of abortion that Democrats really can feel free to run on abortion rights if they want to, coast to coast. And no, maybe it's not wise to do that everywhere in every district. But in a year when the Republicans are more extreme than they have ever been on that issue, those ads that we just showed, that's what it looks like to hit Republicans in a place where they are a soft target. That's what it looks like to use the culture war issue against Republicans, to use their own extremism nationally against them locally. The other bit of conventional wisdom Democrats appear to be following en masse this year is that Democrats can't run on their own record. Democrats can't run on what they've accomplished in Washington over the last 2 years. It can't be done. Republicans said these elections should be a referendum on President Obama. And the people are angry at President Obama and at the Democrats. So therefore, since Republicans said we should do it that way, I guess it'll be that way. By and large, Democrats appear to have bought into that Republican-serving spin about these elections instead of fighting it and putting their own framing on things. And that's why you see Democrats across the country doing anything they can to avoid acknowledging that their district is part of the country, that they are part of a party. They're part of a party that the president is actually the leader of, and he's been doing stuff. Democrats, they say you can't run on your record. They say it can't be done. It can be done. Right now, the White House is trying to lead by example. The White House is trying to encourage Democrats, I am guessing, by showing how to run on Democratic accomplishments. That's why you've got President Obama and Vice President Biden out there doing all of these campaign events. They're talking about what they and the Democratic Congress have done over the past 2 years. Health reform, Wall Street reform, student loan reform. Right now, the White House is modeling what they would hope other Democrats would be able to do. At least that's what it looks like. But not very many Democrats are doing it. As far as we can tell, 2 Democrats are doing it. Today we found exactly 2 Democratic ads, at least, in the entire country that we could identify, in which the Democrat running against the Republican is essentially saying, vote for me because of what we Democrats have done in Washington over the past 2 years. We found 2 instances of that, one in the House and one in the Senate. In the Senate, it's Democratic Senator Patty Murray of Washington running on the fact that Democrats passed Wall Street reform.
I'm Patty Murray. I sponsored this ad.
The big banks and Wall Street didn't want financial reform. They don't want to be held accountable. They want someone who will repeal the tough new regulations.
So yes, that's a repeal.
I think we should.
Repeal Wall Street reform?
I think we should.
Dino chose his Wall Street contributors over protecting our savings. Rossi took the big bank's money, then turned his back on taxpayers. Dino Rossi's not on our side.
We Democrats passed Wall Street reform, that ad says, and this Republican wants to repeal it. Vote for me. Democrats did the right thing. This Republican wants to run the clock back for all the wrong reasons. That is a Democrat running on Democratic accomplishments. Here's Democratic Congressman Mike Ross of Arkansas doing that on the House side.
These are the brave men and women who keep America safe. And no matter how we feel about the war, it's our job to be sure we keep our promises to those who sacrifice so much for us. That's why I voted to take care of our soldiers in battle, expand the GI Bill, and make the largest investment in veterans' health care in 77 years. I'm Mike Ross, and I approve this message because our troops and our veterans deserve our support and respect.
Every Democrat in the country who voted for that could be running on that. Every Democrat who is trying to run for any federal office in the country could be running on that issue. Any Democrat running for any seat, anywhere, dog catcher, state legislature, Congress, senator, governor, any Democrat could run on that as a Democratic Party accomplishment. We Democrats led the fight to expand the GI Bill. We Democrats passed through historic funding for the Veterans Administration. Vote for me. Those are two very good examples of Democrats running on Democratic accomplishments. We found two. Maybe there are more out there, but we spent all day looking and we did not find them. If you know about more, we would love to hear about them. You can let us know via our blog, maddowblog.msnbc.com. This year's elections are now a little more than a month away. The winds are certainly against Democrats this year, no doubt about it. So is the idea, though, bad economy, first midterm after a new president. Oh, God, we're going to lose. We better not even try. That's also running against Democrats. Are Democrats actually going to try to win? There are some good examples this year of Democrats trying to win, wrapping this year's Republican extremism around the necks of Republicans who do not want to answer for it to a general election electorate. Democrats running on what Democrats have accomplished and selling the virtues of those Democratic accomplishments at the same time. It can be done. They said it couldn't be done. It can be done. We have found very few examples of Democrats going for it, using the best stuff available to Democrats in this year's elections, fighting the Republicans on the turf that Republicans do not want to fight on. We have only found a very few examples. Do those examples get copied now in these last, 34 days heading into the election? Do they get copied? And why aren't there more of them already? We'll have some answers ahead tonight. This is going to be a very fun show.